Alex and Bear here with Inline Outdoors. Today's going to be our first episode in a 4-part series talking about outdoor survival mindset, survival tips, and preparedness.
We're calling it Wisdom Wednesdays.
Wisdom Wednesdays. So Bear's going to break down for us the manual that we like to follow, which is an old Army manual. It uses several acronyms about survival, mind preparedness, and whatnot. So what are we using today?
So one of the tools that I like to keep in my toolbox, my mental toolbox, is the FM 21-76, which is the Army Field Manual for Survival. It's got everything from cool acronyms that you can remember to how to properly set up a pup tent, how to set up a buddy shelter, how to do all kinds of different shelters, and how to remain unseen by the enemy, which maybe we'll get into during our tactics month. But for now, we're going to talk about an acronym that we like to call
C.O.L.D.S.
Now, usually it's called C.O.L.D., but we like to screw everything up, so we added an S into it, and we'll get to that S.
All right, guys, so the acronym is C.O.L.D.S. First one is C, which stands for clean. Bear, why is clean an acronym when you think about trying to stay warm outside?
So when we talk about being clean, we want to make sure we stay away from the ODBs. We're not talking about Wu-Tang Clan, rest in peace, ODB. What we're talking about is the oils, the dirts, and the bacterias. Now, if we've got oils, we've got dirts, we've got bacteria in our clothes, then we're going to get things like lesions or rashes. And we're also going to minimize the circulation that we're going to talk about when we get into L. So the next one on that is actually called O for overlaying. And let's talk about overlaying a little bit.
Overlaying layers, guys. Just like when mom was getting you ready for school in the cold winter months, she's going to give you a long sleeve shirt, a big puffy jacket, and gloves. Same concept here. So you want to layer because that heat is going to build in between your layers themselves and your skin. So a couple of good materials you want to look for is stuff like Primaloft, down material, sometimes cotton. You can walk into any store and get any long sleeve like fleece jacket like this, and it doesn't mean it's going to be the best thing for you when you're outside. You're going to wish you had the good stuff. So Primaloft is a good material to look for. It's pretty pricey. All the expensive stuff is going to be made out of Primaloft, but it's going to be lightweight and keeping you warm. Cotton, we say maybe because cotton works great for retaining heat, but it also is what?
Cotton is rotten.
Cotton is rotten when it gets wet. It's not going to dry out. It's going to lose its effectiveness. It's not going to do much for you, but be heavy and useless. Downs is another good material. You'll see Downs puffy jackets. One thing to keep in mind about those is they only are effective when they're puffed out. So if you sleep in them, you're actually compressing it. Like if you're laying on your back, all the down material inside the jacket is going to be useless because it's compressed and doesn't have its heat retaining ability. So a couple things to keep in mind when you're looking for material.
And when we talk about down material, we talk about puffy jackets and things like that. There's two different ways that we can look at that. There's what we call synthetic, and then there's actual like feathered down. Now synthetic in the Pacific Northwest, it's really wet here, so having something synthetic, it's going to dry out a lot faster, whereas if you've got actual feathered down jackets or blankets, what you're actually going to run into, once it gets wet, it's going to be useless, it's going to be heavy, and it's not going to be able to keep you warm. So the next layer we're going to talk about is the L, and that's loose. So we're not talking about being a gangster and sagging your pants. What we're talking about is just making sure that there's room for breath in between those layers, and also being able to know how to put those layers on. And so we'll talk about that real quick. So what we want to do is we want to have some type of polypro style shirt, some form-fitted shirt, and then we want to have a t-shirt, preferably not cotton. Then we want to go into a long sleeve shirt and then a jacket, and then we like to go with the Hill People Gear Serape over top of that, and we'll get into the S, which is a whole nother section of that. But you want to make sure that those layers are there, those loose layers, so you've got those overlaying loose layers. In saying that though, we want to make sure that the outside layer of whatever it is also is strong enough to withstand the cold coming in.
Okay, D stands for dry. Okay, when keeping your stuff dry, obvious concept, guys. You're going to get wet and ultimately cold from two different things. Cold and wetness coming from the outside and from the inside. So, coming from the outside, what is that? Rain, snow, anything that's going to...
Crossing a river.
Right. You want to have material that's going to protect you from that, like Gore-Tex, any kind of rainproof material. Frog Togs is a great brand. That's going to be your outermost layer because you don't want all that getting past that layer and inside of the other layers.
Right.
So underneath that is where the warmth is built up. So coming from the inside is what? Sweat. They say in Arctic areas, you sweat, you die, because in extreme areas like that, if you start sweating, the water is going to be on your skin, and eventually when you stop working hard or stop sweating, it's going to freeze, and you basically walk around with ice on your skin. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So more on that internal factor, the sweat. Make sure you're taking breaks, hydrating, and not overworking, which is Bear's favorite step in that.
Lazy.
That's going to prevent your underlying layers from being affected by that, and it's going to keep you dry.
The last one that we added was the S. So instead of C.O.L.D., we added the S, and that is the survival blanket. And the survival blanket can be used for a number of things. It can be used to keep you warm. Even in a desert environment, the temperature drops down really quickly, and a survival blanket can keep in the heat and absorb any heat that's coming in.
Right. A couple ideas on the survival blanket, what you want to carry with you. Bear and I use the Hill People Gear Mountain Serape. Like we mentioned earlier, it's made out of Primaloft. Wait for a full review on that. You see them at the store, those little blankets that unfold, they look like tinfoil. That's a reflective emergency blanket, all kinds of names for it, but it doesn't really matter. If you got something like that, you can fold it up, stuff it in a pocket, survival kit, extra pocket in your backpack. It's not going to hurt to have with you.
So again, just to recap, we're talking about clean, overlaying, loose, dry garments doubled with a survival blanket. If you do those things and you use the right amount of clean, overlaying, loose garments that are dry, you're going to maintain a nice temperature that's going to keep you effective for a long period of time in a field environment.
So keep your survival mindset, be prepared, have the right gear, and it will pay off in the long run.
As always, let us know what you use to stay warm in the field.